Hey everybody, welcome to the Madden Slider app. This is the latest tutorial video now that the app has been out for a few weeks. You're looking at version 1.04, but this is the most recent version at the time of this filming. So I'm just going to really do a simple walkthrough and just kind of give you a few tips based on some of the comments and questions that I've received on Operation Sports or Twitter or YouTube. And so really just to hope make it a little bit easier to navigate and maybe understand what this app's doing and perhaps equally as important what it's not doing. The first clue I can give you is spend some time and just read, right? I mean, I wrote these instructions and whatnot here to help you. So as you're on this first page here, you can click through and scroll and you can read some of the little tidbits about what's going on. There is a frequently asked questions section, which again, similarly is going to give you some answers to some of the different questions as you scroll through. And you'll see some of the different things in there that might answer a question that you have before you even try to reach out to me or anything like that. And you're going to get a much quicker response. There are some other links here, such as the house rules that I use for my particular Madden franchise. There are the settings that are kind of course, outside of the sliders that I use. You don't have to use these, of course. But they are there if you're curious kind of how I typically play Madden. And then this other slider section, of course, is just really going over the sliders that you don't really need to do like data entry for. These just kind of year to year work pretty well with Madden. And again, take them or leave them. Some folks may want to use some other settings for those, and it's not really going to impact anything. So the real crux of this app is in this generate slider section. And if you just go slow and if you follow the prompts and the instructions, it should make a lot of sense for you. So when I click on this, right away it's asking me a question. What sort of sliders are you looking to generate? Do you want to do human versus human for like an online league? Are you just kind of like coach-only player? Most of you are probably going here, human versus CPU, as that's kind of the more traditional slider setup that we've had in the past. And then again, there's another prompt that comes after this. Do you have existing human versus CPU sliders you would like to start from? That means that maybe you've already played half of your season and maybe you have QB accuracy at like 15 or at 40, or you have interceptions at 0. If you have sliders that are not at default 50, that you want this app to take into account when you enter in your stats, this is where you'd want to hit yes. And so that's what this question is talking about. It's basically asking, I'm going to generate you a slider set off of the stats you are going to soon put in, but tell me here, do you want me to also take into account some sliders that are not at default 50? If you say yes, it's going to take you in and it's just going to ask you to, and it does say it can take a little bit of time in the screen to load, but on this next screen, it's going to have you put in those sliders that are not at 50. So of course they default to 50, because you haven't changed them yet. But if we just do what I said a second ago, if we had like accuracy at 15 and then maybe your interceptions is at 0 or whatever, oops, not 500, that's at 0, you're going to now hit submit, right? So we've done what it says here. Enter your existing human versus CPU sliders. This is human, this is CPU. We hit submit, and then it's going to take us into the actual slider portal. Now, if you hit no earlier about I don't have existing sliders, it's just going to take you straight to here. But because we have entered them, we are here, and you can see there's this green indicator. That means you have entered in your own sliders. If that's not the case, it would just be grayed out. And then this is where you're going to enter in your stats. So you do have to manually put this in. You have to manually track this. Especially there are certain stats that like defended passes defensive pass deflections is what this one stands for, and that you have to keep track of because you can't access that in the main menu of your franchise mode. You have to actually get that in the box score at the end of a game. By the way, there's a help button here, so if you're ever not sure what any of these acronyms are or anything like that, you can click this and they're all in here along with some other information that can help you. And so again, help sections will help you, frequently asked questions will help, but you'll enter in all your stats and then eventually you're going to just hit submit and it'll generate a slider set. This random sample, I've had some people get confused with what this is. That's all it is. A random sample is if you're just curious how this works, or maybe you don't really want to mess with entering in your own stats for some reason. I mean, truthfully, I could probably next year take out the random sample button. I actually created it just for me when I was creating the app, just so I could kind of quickly test some different things. it doesn't really do anything aside from just generate a random sample. It has nothing to do with your style of play. It has nothing to do with your stats or your it has nothing to do with anything. It's random. Like when I hit random, it's generating a random number of completions, kind of based on like a 17-game schedule. It's generating the random number of interceptions. It's doing nothing but that. It's not reading anything else except for generating a random number within a range that I created for each of these. For the sake of this video, I will use the random sample button because I don't want to go through and type all these in manually. That's pretty boring for you to watch. So let's just say these are instead the stats that I got from my, say, last 8 games or something. I played the first half of the season with the sliders that we put in. And again, if you want to see those again, just hit existing sliders. And it's going to ask you again, do you want to adjust? No, I just want to look at them this time, so I don't want to adjust them. But you can see, let's see. Actually, I think to see them, we will have to click yes, but we won't do anything. So again, I say I played the first 8 games of my season, QB accuracy 15, interception 0, and I can just hit cancel to back out of here. And then here's the stats that I put in and say these are the last 8 games I played. I'm now done at the season, or I guess 7, or what is it, 9 games for 17. Anyway, I hit submit, and then it's going to generate me a slider set based on the existing sliders and the stats I put in, right? Which in this case were just random stats, but you get the idea. And so these are kind of all over the place because we just kind of randomly just threw some stuff in there. But we brought up interceptions because I'm guessing I wasn't throwing enough on 0. And, if we go back and look, so, I only threw 14 interceptions. That's certainly possible, but, I think for throwing for, 510 attempts, that's probably a little bit low. And so that's why that's kind of saying like, maybe interceptions at 0 is a little too low for you. If this was at default, it might have kept it at 50, right? But because it's reading it from 0, it's saying it looks like a decrease, but it's not. It went from 0 to 36 instead of like 50. Like if you were at 50 and you threw 14, it might bump interceptions up, right? It might bump it up to 60 or something like that. But because you were at 0 here, it did not do that, right? I can click over here and it shows me the CPU sliders. And again, each of the different modules you enter, whether it's CPU versus CPU or human versus human, they look a little bit different because they're doing different things, right? It's a different style of playing this game. And you can see some of these, they're not out of whack by any means. It's just, it's literally, nothing's broken here. It's just we didn't take our time to like enter in realistic setup here. We entered in stats that, don't exactly probably match up well with the existing sliders we had. So it's not the most realistic example here. The stats are, right? The stats could definitely look something like this. But when we look at existing sliders, we probably went a little extreme in our example there. But nonetheless, that's precisely how it's going to work. And then again, if you want to go back into it and kind of start over, you can. It's going to ask you, I want to do this again. And then typically, if you want to kind of go back in and reset these, you can. You can also just start like a new browser. Like I'm in an incognito browser right now on Google Chrome. That's what I would recommend using, just to make sure you've kind of cleared everything out. But if I hit no this time, it takes me right to the module, as I mentioned. And what I'm going to check is just to see if it still has memory of our existing sliders. Okay, and it does not. But it has kind of bumped these, right? So it's bumped these based on the statistical information that we put in. So that's why I would just say if you go back in to restart it, just clear everything out, right? So we can put everything back to normal, hit submit. Now this is technically just defaulted, right? And that's why this is great. We're at 50 sliders across the board. Now when I do a random sample, say this is like the first time you use it, again, it's going to give us some sliders. I can tell you right now, QB accuracy probably meant that your completion percentage was just, pretty high, like probably in the 70s or, something like that. And if we look here, he was 441 out of 674. So yeah, I mean, that's high 60s at least, right? And again, the Madden, these aren't just straight scale sliders either. The QB accuracy slider is a little bit differently. It's much touchier. It's far less touchier in between, say, like 15 and 40 or 45. It doesn't really do a ton. It starts to have more of an impact as you get down lower. And so just little things to keep in mind there. But as you kind of click through and see, this is going to spit out your sliders based on just two things. It's the sliders that you put into it, whether they're pre-existing or just default, and then the stats you put into it, which have to come from you. You can use that random sample button, but again, it's not doing anything. It's just random numbers. They're not anything to do with your sliders or you. It doesn't know you, right? And I've had quite a bit of confusion around that part, but that is just a random sample. Again, that's a button. You don't even need it, really. It doesn't do anything other than just maybe show you how the app works. So, but yeah, that's it. I hope this makes sense. I hope this answers most of the existing questions that I've seen kind of floating around. But it's been a really fun app. I still appreciate the support too. I've had some people reaching out, sharing their appreciation and saying thanks for the app and even donating. If you are interested in donating, there is a button here. You can do that. You can click in here, click on this donate button, and it takes you to a PayPal that you can submit a payment if you want, just to kind of show your appreciation. And that's super appreciated. Keeps me motivated because this took hours, guys. This took days and days and days on the weekend fiddling with this. And I like it. It's kind of like putting a massive, massive puzzle together that has like no color on it or anything, right? So, but it's a lot of fun. I still like doing these sort of things. And even though I don't even know if I'm going to get Madden 23 this year. I just haven't really been impressed with it the last few years. I still enjoy making little widgets and stuff like this. So I hope you enjoy it. I hope it works for you. Definitely let me know in the comments if you have further questions or just any comments at all that you want to talk about. I'm happy to do that. And again, I appreciate you checking it out and good luck with your Madden franchise and Madden 23.